Okay, shall we make a start then? We're using the layering stencils for Balloon High, and we're also using the embossing folder and the die. I'm going to take you through the whole process. So I'm going to stencil it, I'm going to die cut it, and then I'm going to emboss it, just so that you can see it really come to life, if you like. So those are the mainstay of what we're doing today. Then I'm also using this fabulous little stencil here. This is the Slimline Essentials. There's a set of 3, and they're just such useful little stencils. You don't have to use the whole thing, and just because it's a slimline doesn't mean you can only use it on a slimline card. I'm also using the skinny alphabet. I've also used the large stitched alphabet, and I suppose really you could use these for where I've used the skinny alphabet. I think it would probably still fit, especially on the size of card that I've used today. So you could use these. They are just such a cracking set of dies. They're individual dies, and they're just such a fabulous size, you know. The pack doesn't really do them justice. This is the size they are, and you can see they are quite a reasonable size. Put them next to an ink pad. They're quite a good size, aren't they? And they're just, I love the stitching detail. I just think it's a lovely set of alphabet dies. And of course you can use these along with your floral alphabet dies as well. So good set to have. And then of course I'm using the very fantastic bubble squares, because you can't ever not use these. It's one of your best staple items in your craft stash. I've got to be honest, I would be lost without this set. So just, if you were going to buy one set, or somebody wanted to buy you something for Christmas and you haven't got these, go for these. They're brilliant. They're £24.99, but there's 12 dies in here, and they're big. I mean, let me show you. They are big dies. I mean, can't get much bigger than that really, can you? They're enormous, but they are so useful, and they're something you'll come back to time and time again. So if you can afford those, I'd get those. I'm also using Lisa's coloured gel ink pens. Now I don't use these half as much as I should, and the awesome thing about these pens is they're fabulous on black card. If you're going to use them on black, they are stunning. I'm not using them on black today, I'm using them on coloured glitter card. These are brilliant. So I'm using those, but I'm only using the white, and I'm only using it very slightly, right at the end, okay? Yeah, I agree with you, Connie, 100%. I would be lost without my bubble squares. I use them so often. Those and the scalloped rectangles, they're just amazing. Can you draw on the glitter card? I haven't tried, Janet, I've got to be honest. But I would say, depends what you're drawing with. Give it a go. Try it. I think, depending what you were drawing with, I would say possibly yes. Especially with something like those glitter pens. Because they will sort of stick on, because the glitter card is non-shed. I mean, I'm going off piste here now really, but because the glitter card is non-shed, let's have a look. I'd say yes, because although that sounded scratchy, it's not scratching the glitter off. You know, on some cheap glitter cards, glitter just sheds terribly off the surface. This doesn't. I mean, if you've seen Lisa with Nigel on Create and Craft, and Nigel does the beard test, he rubs it along his beard, and you don't get any glitter off this at all. So although this sounds scratchy, it's because the ink nib is running across the top of the glitter. It's not because it's lifting any glitter off the card. There isn't any glitter on the end of this pen at all. All I would do is, if I was going to use another colour, I'd just make sure I'd wipe the end of this, just to make sure I wasn't picking off anything else. But looking at that, I'd say the answer to your question would be yes. I mean, I don't think it'd be any good for intricate drawing, obviously, because you've got very little control over your pen over a glitter card. But rough drawings, rough sketches, yeah, possibly worth a go anyway. So obviously I've moved it already, but this is where we're headed today. Now you can see here that I've done pink balloons, and I've only used one ink pad. So you can get as many different shades of pink as you want by just changing the pressure and the number of layers of ink that you put down on this card. But just look how glittery that is. I've inked on top of glitter card and it still looks like glitter card. Do you know what I mean? It's not, it hasn't dulled it down at all. It hasn't sort of affected the sparkle or anything like that. So I pinched this idea off Tina, I've got to be honest. Tina did a baby boy card and she attached the balloons to the letter O, and I really liked that. I thought that was really clever. So I pinched that idea off Tina. So thanks, Tina. Sorry, Tina. And then you can see here, this is where I've used the skinny alphabet, and then obviously I've used the stitched alphabet here as well. So we'll get cracking, we'll do this stenciling, and I'm going to take you through it right from start to finish. So we're going to stencil it, we're going to die cut it, and then we're going to emboss it. Okay, I've already got one done, but I just want to show you how it comes to life, because it is beautiful. Okay, so piece of glitter card down, and sometimes your glitter card will have a bit of a bend in it. Depends how you store it. If you store it flat, it should be fine. If you store it standing up like I do, sometimes it might have a little bit of a bend in it. Don't worry about that. It will soon flatten out and it will be absolutely fine. Okay, now I'm using pigment inks. I'm not using blending inks on these because I'm adding this to glitter card. The blending inks wouldn't give me a deep enough colour, and once they were dry, they would pale down a lot more than they would on ordinary card. Okay, so I'm using pigment inks. Now I know they're not designed for blending, although they do, but they give you a better finished colour on your stencils. Okay, so that's my grey. Now it looks black on here, but once I've got everything else on, it will be fine. Now the one thing I would say, because I'm using pigment inks, I'd wipe my ink off straight away as I'm going along. The pigments will stain your stencils, but it's not going to affect how fabulously they work. Okay, they will still work absolutely superbly well. All right, so we're going, you can see here how stained this is. I mean, it might come off. You could use alcohol blending solution on a baby wipe or something, or a bit of cotton wool, and it would probably take that off. It doesn't bother me because I know it's ink that isn't going to encroach on any other stenciling that I'm doing. Okay, so we're going to start with this one, and I'm going to start this one quite light. So you can see there's quite a bit of ink on my brush already, and I'm not going to add any more. I'm literally just going to come into this stencil with the brush, with the ink that I've got left on the brush from what I've been doing. Okay, and you can already see it's a beautiful colour. Now I want some shading around the balloons, so you can see here, hopefully, that I've got some shading behind the balloons that are in front of other balloons. Okay, but I haven't used grey. So yeah, I'm coming in with purple on here because I do want some shading, but for me, I think the grey would be just a little bit too harsh. So I'm coming in with a bit of purple. Now if I lift that off, you can see there's a definite line of purple there. I don't want it as a definite line, so what I'm going to do is just blend it out with what's left on my pink brush. So I've still got shading, but it's not really, really deep. Okay, and again, I'm just going to take off that ink on my stencil. And partly that is because when I'm sort of flipping them over, if I've got ink on the front of this, it's going to sit on the back of the one that I'm putting it on top of. And when I come to use them again, the ink that's on the back is going to encroach on my stenciling, and I don't want that to happen. All right, so that one was quite light, and this one we're going to go quite dark. So I would come in here and go quite heavy with this one. I want this one to be really, really quite a deep, almost shocking pink. And I think the glitter card just adds to the colour. I just think it looks fabulous on glitter card. I know Lisa tried this only with a small piece when she was on with Catherine, and it worked, and I think they were both quite astonished how beautiful it looked, but she didn't really get a chance to sort of have another go, so I thought, well, I'll try it and see what I think. And I've got to be honest, I was a bit blown away by the finish that I got, so I thought that's what we'll do today. So there's my second one, and again I'm going to take the ink off here as much as I can before going in with number 4. Now this is really dark, that's quite pale, so I'm going to go reasonably dark with this one as well, just because I want you to be able to see different shades of pink when you look at them, like you can on this one. See, different shades of pink, and that's just done with one ink pad, and different pressures, different numbers of layers onto your glitter card. So the more layers you put on, the deeper your colour's going to be. And again, coming in with the purple. Now I can afford to be a little bit heavier with this because that pink's quite deep, but I do want to blend it out so that I haven't got a solid line. Okay, I think that's really, I just think it's so effective, and I just love that you put it onto glitter card but you can still see the glitter card underneath. Right, this one I want really pale, so I'm going to take off what's left of my ink on here to make sure that I haven't got very much at all. Now you can see there's hardly any pink on there, but just enough to give me a little bit of colour. So I'm not adding any ink to my purple brush either, because I'm going pale on pale, well, dark colour onto pale, and don't want it to be too dark. So just blend that out. So you see that's quite a different pink to the others. I just love how you can vary your colours using one pad and just get different effects. I think it's amazing. So again, I'm coming in quite pale with this one. I'm going to leave it at that because this is next to a dark one, and I want the dark one here to stand out against this pink, this pale pink one. There's so many ways you can use this set. I really don't think you'd exhaust the number of ways. So we've gone reasonably dark on here, but pale on here, so I think we're going to go doubly dark on this one. And it's just really so that you've got some difference between each balloon. Because you're using the same colour, you just want to make sure that you can see where one ends and one where one starts and one finishes. So the more layers you put on, the better your colour's going to be, the richer your colour's going to be, not better, richer, and it's going to stand out against all the others. So you can see here that I'm going quite heavy here, and because I'm going to take the ink off, I'm going to brush the ink into that aperture as well, just to give me a little bit extra. Yeah, that's nice. And then again, we're coming in with the purple. Use the right brush tone just to give me a bit of shadow behind the balloon that's going to be in front of this one. You don't need very much at all, as I said, just enough to give you that sense of shade behind the one in front. From the one in front, I mean. Right, so we've gone quite dark and quite dark, so this one's going to be pale. So I'm not putting any ink on my brush here. I'm just going over this aperture with what's left on my brush. And again, same with the purple. I'm not adding any more ink because I don't think I probably will actually. Because I want it as shadow. I want it to be there, but not sort of, not too in your face. Yeah, like that. So just taking the ink off your stencils as you've used them will just help to lessen the amount of staining that you get. You know, it's not vital, but just keeps them looking nicer. But you know, whatever. So let's have a look at that. Shall we leave that as that? I think we will, just so as we've got a little bit of difference. So you can see already that there are different pinks in there, and like I said, I've used one ink pad here. Well, two if you count the shading, I suppose. So let's just pop our lids on our ink pads. And don't forget, I said pigment inks, not blending inks, just because it'll give you a better colour. Alright, so the next thing you want to do is cut it out. Now remember, tape doesn't like glitter card, so you're going to have to be really careful that your die doesn't move on this glitter card. But if you use a piece of tape like I'm doing across the bottom, just make sure I've got that in the right place, put it across the bottom and press it down either side of your die. So you're not pressing in the middle here because you don't really want it to stick where you've inked in case it lifts any of the ink. So I'm just going to run this through. I'm doing it off camera, so bear with. I mean, you might hear it, but I can't fit my die cutting machine on my desk. Not with everything else. So just lift that off. You see, it will pick up some of the ink, which is why I said don't press it down. So it's picked up some of the ink on the tape, but it hasn't really detracted from the ink on there. Well, I don't think it has anyway. So we're just going to pop that out. Cuts beautifully, cuts like a dream. Has moved slightly. As you can see here, there's sort of like a little bit of, you can see the glitter card as opposed to colour. But I don't really think it will matter that much. And then we're just going to emboss it. Now, we've used pigment inks and they will stain your embossing folder, but if you wipe off the ink that's on your folder straight away, yes, it will stain the folder, but it's not going to spoil it, and it won't come off on any other embossing that you're going to be doing afterwards. Don't forget to change your plate combination for the embossing folder, because it's not the same as the die. And just run that through. Now it pops. Now you see here, there's ink on here, alright? Wipe it off. I mean, I would use a baby wipe or a wet cloth or something just to get the majority of the ink off. But once you've taken off the majority of the ink so that it's actually dry, it's not going to come off on anything else. Okay, so yes, it'll stain your folder, but it's not going to affect it. Okay, so just move those out of the way. So that is your embossing, die cutting and stenciling on glitter card. How awesome does that look? I love this. Inks on glitter card that stays looking like glitter card. It's fabulous. It looks, I mean, I know it's 3D because it's gone through a 3D embossing folder, but oh wow, oh, I love it. Don't you think it looks amazing? I don't mean my colouring, I mean the effect. I just think it's cracking. So And then we're going to use this on our card. So we're putting this on an 8x8 card, okay? I was going to do it on a 7x7, but when I'd set it all out, it just looked too much. It just looked a little bit swamped on a 7x7, so I've used an 8x8. And then I've cut the largest bubble square without the bubbles on, so the first one in from the biggest bubble square, I've used that one. Okay, now I'm gonna use my stencil on here, and all I'm using is the ink that's left on my brush. All right, and I'm just really going really random over this stencil. I'm not going in straight lines. I'm not doing it. It is just what you see, so random. Just have fun with it, really. You don't have to, you can put as much or as little as you want. I might just fill a bit of that gap in there, but you'll notice that I've not re-inked, and this is pigment ink as well, so it stays quite wet on the brush. It doesn't stay wet on your card, but it will stay quite wet on your brush. And obviously, because I'm using it on a stencil, I'm using the ink that's left on the brush, but I'm also moving the ink that's left on the stencil from the time before. You with me? So it is literally just moving ink around that's left on your stencil and on your brush. I think that'll do, just to add a little bit of interest in the background, and I think that's all you need, really. So that's my base on my card. Let's move this out of the way now. I don't need that again. Okay, so I'm gonna raise this up a little bit because I do think it deserves raising up, because I know we have to be careful with like postage costs and whatever, but I think when you've spent the time doing 3D stenciling and then 3D embossing, I think it's worth just raising it up a little bit and making it a feature. So we're going to pop that up there, and then I've got another piece here just to fill this gap. Make sure I put it the right way around. And then we're just going to pop this onto our card. I love these sheets, they're so useful. Trouble is they go quick. Okay, so I'm going to make sure I've got my hearts the right way up, make sure I've got my card the right way up, as I've done that so many times you wouldn't believe it. Gone to do it one way and ended up doing it another way. Okay, so that's my base. Okay, and then I've just got my letters. Now I've cut all these out and glued them already because they do take a little bit of time, and I didn't want to sit here just gluing, because you all know how to do that. But I do love doing them on two different coloured cards and drop shadow in them. I just think it gives a lovely effect. So there's my lettering. Just make sure it's straight, and then we'll just bring that down a little bit so that it's a little bit closer to the girl. Now then, see, Connie was on the ball earlier on and spotted that I've used the white ink gel pen on these balloons, and you can see all I've done is put like a little light accent on them, and I've literally just done white gel pen, sorry, on here. And the only thing I'd say is do it 2 or 3 times, and then go to the next one and do that 2 or 3 times, and then go back to your first one and do it again. And if you put sort of like 2 or 3 layers on and let it dry, as it dries it gets whiter, and I just think it adds that last little bit of effect, just to make it look good. So I'm going to lift my R slightly so that I know where my balloons need to go. I'm going to put my balloons down last. Okay, so I'm going to put my words down first, and then my balloons will just fit in afterwards. Now I did add the letters with 3D glue gel, so let's do the same, shall we? Let's keep it all the same. So we're just going to lift this up here slightly. Thought it was such a genius idea that I had to pinch it. I hope Tina doesn't mind. I'm sure she won't. But the beauty of the 3D glue gel, of course, is that you've got a little bit of wiggle room on putting things down, and it's easier to line them up. So I'm a little bit high there with the L, but then I can put my balloons down, because I know now that my balloons are going to sit on top of that letter R, like so. And I love the fact that they sit just outside the square. I just think that is it really finishes it off. I think that's really sweet. So then I'm just going to add these down, and then I'm just going to finish it off with some really bright pink gems that I've had in my stash for ages. And then we'll just finish off with 3 little gems. And like I've said to you before, I would always use an odd number. Something to do with balance, and I've no idea, but it always looks good. Never looks right if you use an even number. So there we go. So there you are. So just before I go, I also did another set in blues. How fab do they look? I think they're awesome. I've used Tranquil Waters, Deep Ocean, Surf's Up and Spiced Plum on there, and I think they are fabulous. They look great on a mail card, I think. I don't think they're too girly, but it just goes to show that your glitter card still looks like glitter card. I mean, I suppose what I could have done was inked up some glitter card and cut my letters out of glitter card as well. I never thought before, but I've just used a sparkly glitter pen over those letters just to sort of tie it all in. But I just think they're beautiful. I just think it's just such a clever way of adding ink to glitter card, and it looks awesome. I mean, who wouldn't be happy receiving a card like that? I think it's fabulous. Thank you so much for joining me. I really do appreciate it. Have a fabulous week, and I'll see you on Thursday. Bye now.